The grand space station floated like a silver jewel in the dark sea of the galaxy. Its walls shone with the light of 1,000 stars. Ships of every size and shape came and went, carrying leaders from many worlds. The great hall inside the station had been prepared for one of the most important meetings in history. Races who once feared each other had now gathered under one roof. They came to discuss peace, trade, and new beginnings. Every leader was welcomed with music and cheer. The tall reptilian generals bowed proudly as their allies rushed to greet them. The winged envoys from the cloud worlds sang songs of friendship. The insectoid queens walked with clicking steps, each one surrounded by admirers. One after another, every ruler found someone willing to stand beside them. They laughed, exchanged gifts, and sealed new friendships with bright words. But at the far end of the hall, a throne remained empty. No one dared to sit near it. The guards whispered as they passed by. The other leaders avoided looking at it. The throne belonged to Queen Cerelia. The ruler of the vampire race Cerelia was known across the stars as the Vampire Queen. Her people were powerful, tall, and elegant, but most feared them. Ancient stories told of their hunger for life energy. Some said they drank strength from other beings. Others claimed they lived forever in shadows, plotting against weaker species. Truth and lies had mixed for centuries. Fear had grown into legend. When Cerelia finally entered the hall, silence fell like a heavy curtain. Her steps were graceful, her black robes flowing like smoke behind her. Her skin was pale as starlight, her dark eyes glowing faintly in the light. She carried herself with pride, her chin lifted, but inside her heart was heavy. She had known this silence many times before. The other leaders bowed slightly, only out of duty, then quickly turned away. None reached to shake her hand. None offered gifts. They went back to their own groups, leaving her to walk alone toward her throne. Cerelia sat with slow dignity, folding her long fingers in her lap. Around her, voices rose in cheerful conversations, but none included her. The laughter of others filled the air, yet the space near her throne was empty. She was a queen, yet she sat in isolation. For a moment, her gaze drifted across the hall. She watched the humans. They were newer to galactic politics, less advanced than some, yet their spirit was known everywhere. They often dared to go where others would not. They smiled more easily than the old races, and they were quick to speak. One of them caught her eye. A man stood near the human group, not dressed in shining armor or colorful robes, but in a simple officer's coat. He was tall, but not imposing, with brown hair and steady eyes. Unlike the others, he was not laughing or boasting. He was quietly watching the hall, noticing everything. His name was Captain Elias Grant. He was not the highest rank among the humans, nor the most famous, but he had been chosen to join the human delegation because of his careful mind and his sense of respect. While others talked loudly, Elias observed, and now his eyes had noticed the one throne left in silence. He saw how no one went near the queen. He saw how her guards stood straight but tense, ready to shield her from insults. And he saw, just for an instant, the faintest flicker of loneliness in her eyes, before she hid it behind a mask of cold pride. Elias did not know why, but something stirred inside him. Perhaps it was human curiosity. Perhaps it was the human spirit that often pushed toward the unknown. Or perhaps it was simply kindness. While everyone else turned away, he felt the pull to step closer. The evening grew long. Speeches were made, promises exchanged. The hall was alive with color and movement. But around Cerelia's throne, nothing changed. She remained a shadow among lights. When the music began and the leaders mingled more freely, Elias made his decision. He walked slowly away from his group. Some of his own people noticed and frowned. A fellow officer whispered, "Where is he going?" But Elias did not answer. His boots echoed lightly against the polished floor as he crossed the wide space between the laughing crowds and the silent throne. The guards of Cerelia straightened, their hands twitching near their weapons. The queen herself turned her eyes upon him, cold and sharp like blades of ice. Elias stopped a respectful distance away. He bowed his head, not too low, not too proud, but enough to show honor. Your Majesty, he said calmly, his voice steady. The hall grew quieter. Several leaders turned their heads, surprised. No one expected a human, of all beings, to approach the vampire queen. Cerelia's lips curved slightly, though it was not a smile. You are bold, she said, her voice smooth, but heavy with old sorrow. Do you know who I am? Human? Yes, Elias answered. You are Queen Cerelia, ruler of your people. You sit alone while others share company. That is what I see. Her eyes narrowed, glowing faintly red. Many expected her to dismiss him at once, but instead she studied him, curious. His words had not been wrapped in fear or insult. They had been simple, honest. Why do you come to me? She asked at last. Do you seek stories to tell your kind? Do you wish to prove you dared to stand before the monster? Elias shook his head. I do not believe you are a monster. I only believe no leader should sit in silence when this hall speaks of peace. For the first time that night, something flickered in Cerelia's heart, a warmth she had not felt in centuries. Yet she hid it quickly, keeping her mask of cold dignity. You are either foolish, she said softly, or different from the rest. Perhaps both, Elias replied with a small, honest smile. A faint sound rose around them, whispers, laughter, disbelief. Some leaders mocked him quietly. Look at the human, one alien snickered. Trying to charm the Queen of Shadows? Others shook their heads. But Elias ignored them. His eyes stayed on hers, steady and without fear. Cerelia leaned back in her throne, studying him further. She wanted to dismiss him, to keep her pride safe, but a part of her would not let him go so easily. He had done something no one else dared. He had reached across the space of silence. And in that moment, though no one knew it yet, something had begun. The hall continued its music. The leaders continued their laughter, but a quiet thread had been woven between a human and a queen long neglected. The galaxy did not see it, not yet. But in the shadows of that great hall, the first step toward a bond that would change the stars had been taken. The grand hall of the station slowly quieted after the long speeches. Music softened, the air filled with low voices and clinking glasses. Leaders of many species mingled in circles, each group busy with talks of trade or alliances, but one spot remained different. The throne of the vampire queen stood like an island in the middle of a noisy sea. No one came close. Her guards remained still, their armor catching the lights. Her presence carried both power and loneliness. Captain Elias Grant stood nearby, still feeling the weight of his earlier step. He had greeted Queen Cerelia, spoken words that most feared to say. He had expected her to dismiss him, perhaps even scorn him, but instead, she had studied him with sharp curiosity. The memory of her glowing eyes stayed with him. Now, as laughter filled the hall again, Elias thought deeply. He saw leaders gather in pairs, promising friendship. He saw rival species shaking hands after decades of mistrust. Yet the queen, ruler of a proud people, sat apart. As if she had no place in this new galaxy of peace, something inside him refused to accept that. Humanity had often been the smallest voice in great councils, but humans had one gift. They reached for the impossible. Where others hesitated, they stepped forward. Elias filled his glass with water and walked again toward the silent throne. The movement caught attention. Whispers spread quickly. The human goes back to her, a reptilian general muttered. He dares too much. An insectoid envoy clicked. Some even laughed, expecting him to be turned away. Cerelia noticed him long before he reached her. She leaned against her throne, her dark eyes following his steady steps. She had lived centuries, seen many beings try to flatter her for power or fame. None had lasted long. But this human he was different. His face carried no hunger for reward, no mask of false bravery. His calm puzzled her. When he stopped before her, she raised one brow. Again you stand before me. Do your kind send you as their champion? Or do you walk here by your own will? My own will, Elias said simply. I could not ignore the empty space around your throne. A faint sound escaped her lips, almost a laugh, though sharp and cold. Empty space is my companion, Captain. Do you think it troubles me? Yes, Elias replied. His voice was quiet but firm. I think even a queen should not be left alone when others gather in peace. The guard stiffened at his boldness. The queen tilted her head, her long black hair sliding across her shoulder. You speak as if you know me, she said softly. No, Elias admitted. I do not know you. That is why I wish to listen. His answer startled her. Most beings spoke to her with flattery or fear. No one had ever offered something so simple, to listen. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. The hall's music echoed distantly, the voices of others faded. In that space, Ceralius studied him deeply. His heartbeat was steady, his eyes did not look away. Finally, she said, sit. The word was not loud, but it carried command. A small chair was brought by one of her attendants. Elias sat, careful and respectful, but without fear. Now he was closer to her than anyone else dared to be. What is it you want to hear? She asked, folding her pale hands. Your story, Elias said. Not the legends others tell. Not the fears whispered in shadows. Only what you choose to share. Her eyes narrowed, and for a while she said nothing. Memories stirred within her long centuries of battles, betrayals, and nights of silence. She thought of times when she had spoken only to be mocked or feared. Yet this human's voice carried no trap. Very well, she said at last. I will give you one piece. My people are called vampires because we draw energy from others. That is true. But it is not theft as you believe. It is exchange. We take only what is freely offered, and in return we give strength back. It was once a bond between races. But fear grew. Rumors spread. They called us monsters. They said we enslaved. And so, one by one, allies turned away. Her voice remained calm, but Elias saw pain in her eyes. She spoke not only as a queen, but as someone who had carried the burden of lies for generations. He leaned forward slightly, so the galaxy judged before it understood. Yes, she said, and once fear becomes truth in the minds of many, it cannot be undone. For a moment, neither spoke. Elias thought of human history, of times when his own kind had been divided by falsehoods, when fear had created walls between people. He understood, at least in part, the loneliness she described. That should change, Elias said finally. If there is peace now, it should include all, not all but one. Her lips curved again in that sharp half-smile. You speak as if your words could rewrite centuries. Maybe not, Elias admitted, but words are where change begins. The hall around them stirred. Leaders had noticed the humans' bold conversation with the queen. Some whispered with suspicion, others with ridicule. A feathered envoy muttered, "The human plays a dangerous game." A scaled general sneered, "He seeks favor where none is given." Yes. But Ceralius ignored them. For the first time in many years, she found herself listening with interest. This human's courage was not loud, not boastful. It was quiet, steady, like a flame refusing to die. She decided to test him further. Tell me, Captain, why risk your reputation? Your kind is still new among these stars. To be seen beside me may harm you. Why take that step? Elias thought carefully before he spoke. Because peace without truth is fragile. If all leaders are welcomed except one, then peace is not complete. I don't want to stand aside and pretend not to see. Her eyes softened, just slightly, though the change was hidden from most. She felt something rare stir within her respect she had not given lightly. You are bold, human, she said quietly, and perhaps reckless. But I will remember this moment. The music in the hall swelled again. Leaders returned to their talks, though many still watched from afar. Some shook their heads, convinced the human was a fool. Others felt unease, sensing that something important had begun. As the evening ended, Ceralius rose from her throne, her robes flowing like a tide of darkness. She turned to Elias once more. Walk with me tomorrow, she said in a low voice only he could hear. If you truly wish to listen, then I will show you more than words. Elias stood and bowed respectfully. I will, he answered. When she left the hall, her guards following, the space she left behind seemed heavier than before. Yet Elias felt something new, thread of connection that no one else had dared to create. The other humans questioned him later. What did you say to her? Why risk this? One asked. Elias only replied, I spoke as I would to anyone who sat alone. And so, on that night, while the galaxy still whispered of fear and legend, a human had stepped forward where no one else dared. He had offered respect where others gave only silence, and in the quiet heart of the Vampire Queen, something long buried began to stir again. The step had been small, but it was the first of many. The next day, the space station's lights dimmed to mimic morning. Long corridors echoed with the steps of diplomats, soldiers, and attendants moving from chamber to chamber. For most, the day meant more negotiations, more talks of peace and trade. But for Captain Elias Grant, the day carried something different. He had promised Queen Cerealia he would walk with her. It was a promise he did not take lightly. Few would dare to accept such an invitation. Some of his fellow humans warned him against it. The Queen is dangerous, one whispered. Her kind has lived too long in shadows. Be careful, Elias. Elias only nodded, keeping his thoughts quiet. Danger did not frighten him as much as silence did. He could not forget the loneliness he had seen in her eyes. When the hour came, 2 of Cerelia's guards met him outside her private hall. They were tall, armored, and silent, but they did not stop him. They only opened the heavy doors, letting him step inside. The chamber was vast, built of dark, stone-like material brought from her homeworld. Strange silver patterns glowed faintly across the walls, forming symbols from her people's language. At the far end stood the Queen, tall and graceful, her robes flowing like water. She was not seated upon her throne now, but standing beside a wide window that looked out into the endless stars. You came, Cerealia said, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. I gave my word, Elias replied. Bowing slightly, she turned her head toward him, her dark hair catching the dim light. Many have given their word to me in the past. Few kept it. Elias did not answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, careful but unafraid. Then perhaps it is time someone did. Her eyes lingered on him, sharp and searching. She seemed to measure every word he spoke. Finally, she gestured toward the window. Come, look with me. Elias walked beside her, gazing out into the sea of stars. Ships glided across the void, some docking with the station, others departing for far worlds. It was a sight of peace, but he sensed a deeper meaning in her gaze. My people once walked freely among the stars, Cerealia began. We were not feared then. We were healers, guardians, companions. Our gift was to share life energy. We took a small part, but in return we gave strength, healing, and long life. It was a sacred bond. Many called us the keepers of balance. Her voice softened, as if remembering gentler times. But then her tone grew heavy. Fear destroyed it. Rumors twisted our gift into something darker. They called us thieves of life, cursed and unnatural. Allies turned into enemies. We were hunted, forced into shadows. To survive, we built walls of pride and silence. And so the galaxy remembers only the lies. Elias listened quietly, his hands folded behind his back. He could feel the weight in her words, not just of history, but of personal pain. Is this why you sit alone? He asked gently. Because the galaxy believes the lies? Yes, she answered. If I demand respect, they call me arrogant. If I show patience, they call me manipulative. No matter what I do, fear shapes their eyes. So I let them keep their distance. It is easier than fighting endless whispers. For a moment, Elias said nothing. He thought of his own people. Humans had also been misunderstood many times in their past. They had fought among themselves, divided by fear and falsehoods, yet always pushed forward. He wondered if this queen, for all her power, was trapped in the same struggle scene, not for what she was, but for what others believed her to be. You deserve more than silence, Elias said finally. Your people deserve to be known for truth, not rumor. Her eyes shifted toward him, sharper now. And why does this matter to you, human? You are not of my kind. Your reputation would be safer if you joined the rest in their laughter and distance. Because peace without truth is weak, Elias replied. If humanity wants to be part of this galaxy, then we must stand for something. And I would rather stand for truth than for fear. For the first time, Sorelia's expression softened. It was not quite a smile, but it was no longer the cold mask she often wore. You are unusual, Captain, she said quietly. Perhaps that is why you draw my attention. Silence stretched between them, not heavy this time, but thoughtful. Elias broke it with a question that surprised even himself. How do your people truly live? Beyond the rumors, what is your life like? She studied him again, as though deciding whether he was worthy of such knowledge. Then she moved to a panel on the wall. With a wave of her hand, the chamber shifted. The floor glowed, forming images like a memory made of light. Elias saw visions, tall figures with pale skin and glowing eyes walking through great halls of crystal, children laughing as they played with sparks of energy, pairs of her people standing hand in hand, sharing light that flowed between them in shining threads. It was beautiful, alive, nothing like the cold legends told by others. This is the truth, Sorelia said softly. We are not monsters. We are a people who give and receive. Our strength is not in taking, but in sharing. But few will believe this unless they see it themselves. Elias watched the images with awe. He saw not darkness, but harmony. And he felt a quiet anger that such beauty had been hidden behind walls of fear. Then let them see, he said firmly. Show them what I see now. Her eyes flickered, half with hope, half with doubt. Would they listen, or would they laugh as always? They might, Elias admitted. But change never begins with the crowd. It begins with one voice, then another. Perhaps yours, and perhaps mine. Her gaze lingered on him again, and for the first time saw a spark of something beyond cold pride, something almost like trust. You risk much, human, she said quietly. Your own leaders may question your closeness to me. I know, Elias answered, but some risks are worth taking. The chamber grew silent once more. The glowing images faded, leaving only the stars beyond the window. Sorelia turned back to them, her voice softer now. Perhaps, Captain Elias, you are not like the others. Perhaps. She paused, her tone almost uncertain. Perhaps I have judged your kind too quickly. Elias smiled faintly. Then we both have much to learn about each other. That moment marked the true beginning of something new. The queen, who had been alone for centuries, had allowed a human into the shadows of her truth. And the human, who many dismissed as ordinary, had begun to carry the weight of her trust. Yet outside her chamber, rumors already spread. Envoys whispered that the human was too close to the vampire queen. Some feared manipulation. Others felt envy. The station's halls buzzed with talk, but Elias and Sorelia, standing beside the window, cared little for whispers, for in that moment, they shared something stronger, the beginning of understanding and understanding. Once born could not be so easily silenced. The days on the great station passed quickly. Talks of peace continued in shining halls filled with banners, music, and endless words. On the surface, harmony seemed to grow. Leaders smiled for ceremony and promises were spoken for the galaxy's future. But behind the smiles, tension stirred. Whispers spread like fire in dry grass. Envoys murmured about Queen Sorelia and the human who dared to walk beside her. Some claimed he had fallen under her spell. Others said she was weaving a secret plan through him. A few were simply jealous that the human had shown courage no one else had. Captain Elias Grant heard the whispers. He saw the suspicious eyes that followed him through corridors, but he did not turn back. Each day he spent time with Sorelia, listening to her truths, asking about her people, sharing stories of humanity in return. Slowly, a quiet bond formed between them, stronger than the rumors outside, yet peace is fragile. And soon the station was shaken. One morning, alarms echoed through the halls. Red lights flashed across the ceilings. Leaders and guards rushed into the central chamber, voices loud and angry. Reports came in. A weapons cache had been discovered hidden in one of the docking bays. Advanced bombs, strong enough to destroy entire fleets, had been planted in secret. Fear erupted at once. Accusations flew between species, but the loudest cry came against the vampires. "It was her kind," shouted a scaled general, slamming his claws against the table. Who else would bring such dark devices into a hall of peace? Others quickly agreed. Yes, they are the masters of shadows. They cannot be trusted. The queen seeks to strike while we rest. Hissed another. Sorelia rose slowly from her throne, her tall form commanding the chamber. Her eyes glowed faintly red, not with hunger but with fury at the insult. "You accuse without proof," she said coldly. "My people came here with honor. We have no need of hidden weapons." But her words met only with more noise. The chamber shook with shouts. Old fears rose like storms. Leaders who had smiled days before now turned sharp and suspicious. Elias stepped forward, his voice rising above the noise. "Enough." The hall fell silent, surprised by the human's boldness. "You speak of peace, but act with fear," Elias said firmly. "Where is the proof against her?" "Do not condemn without truth," the scaled general sneered. "You defend her, human? Are you blind to her history? Has she not bewitched you with her tricks?" Elias's jaw tightened, but he did not falter. "I have walked with her. I have listened. I know what she is and what she is not. These weapons are not hers." Gasps and murmurs spread across the room. Never had a human spoken so openly against the tide of voices. Soralia's eyes turned toward Elias. For a moment, centuries of isolation on her shoulders felt lighter. No one had ever defended her so openly before, but the council demanded action. After heated argument, it was agreed. An investigation would begin. And until truth was found, suspicion would hang heavy. Many still wished for her exile. That night, Sorelia sat alone in her private chamber, staring into the stars. Though her mask of pride remained, her heart was heavy. She had known betrayal before, but to see it repeated again was a wound deeper than most. Then the door opened. Elias entered quietly, his step steady. "You should not be here," Sorelia said without turning. "Your own people will question your loyalty." "I am not here for politics," Elias replied. "I am here for truth." She turned slowly, her dark eyes studying him. "Why risk so much for me, human? Even if you believe me, why face the storm alone?" "Because truth matters," Elias said simply, "and because no one deserves to carry lies forever." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then, Sorelia looked away, her voice softer. "The galaxy will not forgive so easily. Proof is the only weapon we have." "Then we will find it," Elias answered. And so began their trial of trust. Together, they searched through the vast station, following clues that others ignored. Elias spoke to engineers and guards, using his calm respect to open doors. Sorelia used her keen senses, able to see traces of energy that others missed. Slowly, the pieces formed. They discovered faint trails of chemical residue in the docking bay, where the bombs had been hidden. But the energy signature was not of vampire origin. It carried the mark of a rival faction and ambitious group, who hated the peace talks and wished for war to return. The deeper they searched, the more danger grew. Once, they were nearly trapped in a collapsing maintenance shaft rigged with false alarms. Another time, they faced guards bribed to delay them. But side by side, they pressed forward. Elisa's courage balanced Sorelia's sharp instincts. Where he gave calm words, she gave swift protection. In their struggle, they grew closer. She saw his bravery not as recklessness, but as strength of spirit. He saw her not as a queen of shadows, but as a leader carrying heavy truth. Finally, one night, they uncovered the evidence they needed. Records hidden in the station's system, showing the rival faction's secret shipments and false orders. It was clear proof that the bombs had been planted by them, not by Sorelia's people. They brought the evidence before the council. At first, many doubted, unwilling to give up their fear. But the truth was undeniable. The rival faction was exposed, their plots shattered, The chamber grew silent when Seralia stood, her voice calm but strong. You judged without proof. You condemned without truth. Let this be a lesson, for peace cannot survive if built on lies. Then Elias stepped beside her, his presence quiet but powerful. She speaks truth, he said. And if humanity has any voice here, let it be this. Trust cannot grow in shadows, but neither can it grow in false light. Only honesty will bind us. For the first time, many leaders looked at Seralia not with fear, but with respect. Whispers shifted. Eyes softened. She was still the vampire queen. But now, she was also the one who stood firm in the face of falsehood. And the human who defended her became her ally in truth. That night, when the council ended and the leaders departed to their chambers, Seralia lingered with Elias. You defended me when no one else would, she said quietly. I will not forget it. Elias shook his head. I only spoke what I knew was right. She studied him, her eyes less cold than before. Perhaps, she said softly, it is not I who has neglected all this time. Perhaps the galaxy has neglected humans too, for only a human had the courage to reach for me. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Neither spoke further, but both knew something had changed. The trial of trust had not broken them, it had forged a bond stronger than before, and in the silence of the stars, the Queen of Shadows and the human captain stood together, no longer alone. The station was calm the morning after the council crisis. Light from distant stars streamed through the wide windows, casting silver and gold streaks across the halls. For most leaders, it was just another day of diplomacy, schedules, and careful smiles. But for Queen Seralia and Captain Elias Grant, the day felt different. The trial had ended. The rival faction had been exposed, their lies laid bare before the council. The Vampire Queen's honor had been restored, not by force, but by the truth, and by a human who had dared to reach out when no one else would. The other leaders now treated her with respect. Some even approached her throne cautiously, offering apologies or gifts, but Seralia's attention was not on them. Her eyes sought Elias, standing patiently nearby, simple in his human uniform, yet full of calm confidence. You stayed, she said softly, when their eyes met. I promised, Elias replied with a small smile. I do not leave someone alone when others try to condemn them. Her lips curved faintly with what might have been a smile. You have done more than I could have imagined. You risked much, not for glory, but for truth. Why? Because truth matters, Elias said simply. And because kindness is worth more than fear. For a moment, they stood quietly, letting the sounds of the station flow around them. Outside, ships departed and arrived. Voices echoed through the corridors. Yet in that space it felt as if time had slowed, leaving only them and the stars. Word spread quickly across the station. Leaders who had once avoided Seralia now spoke cautiously, yet with respect. The human captain who had walked beside her became a symbol of courage and honesty. Many whispered that the bond between them was unusual, even impossible. Some laughed at the idea of a human standing so closely with a queen of legend. But others watched with curiosity, sensing that a new era had begun. Later, in the quiet of her private chamber, Seralia spoke of the past. She told Elias stories of her people, how they had once thrived among the stars, how their gift of life energy had once been a blessing to countless civilizations, and how fear had taken it all away. She spoke with honesty, showing him not only her pride as a queen, but also the loneliness she had carried through centuries. Elias listened, never interrupting, always giving space for her words. He shared stories of humanity in return, of perseverance, of times when humans had faced misunderstanding but had endured, and of their hope to connect with others despite fear. She found herself drawn to his stories, seeing a spark in humanity she had not expected. You make me wonder, Seralia said quietly one evening, looking out at the stars. If only my people had met humans sooner, perhaps our isolation could have ended long ago. Elias shook his head. Perhaps it is not too late. You still have allies now, and some of us will help you build trust again, one step at a time. She turned toward him, eyes glowing softly in the starlight. "You are not like the others," she said. "Most are afraid of me, or they wish to use me. You see me differently. You see me," Elias replied. "You trust me." A faint silence passed, not awkward, but comfortable. For the first time in her long life, Sorelia felt truly understood. She had known power and fear, strategy and diplomacy, but never trust like this. Weeks passed. The council meetings continued, yet now Sorelia and Elias moved through the halls together. Their presence was no longer shocking, but symbolic. Other leaders began to follow their example. If a human could walk openly beside the feared vampire queen, perhaps alliances could be stronger, more honest. During this time, Sorelia allowed herself small freedoms. She smiled more often, laughed quietly when she heard Elias's clever remarks, and even shared glimpses of humor that few had ever witnessed. Elias, in turn, admired her strength and wisdom. He had seen many leaders, but none as complex and determined as the vampire queen. Together, they grew not only as allies, but as companions who respected and valued each other one day. As the station's central plaza filled with leaders for a ceremonial event, Sorelia stood beside Elias. She felt a calm pride, not in power or fear, but in connection. Leaders approached them, offering greetings and gifts. Some remembered the past, some whispered of rumors, but none dared disrespect them now. "You see," Elias said quietly, "the galaxy can change. One act of courage, one choice to trust, can alter perception." Sorelia nodded. "I see it now, and I am grateful. For you." Their bond had begun with a simple step, Elias reaching for what others ignored. It had grown through truth, courage, and shared understanding. Now it became an example. A human and a vampire queen standing together. Not through fear, but through respect. Even beyond the station, across the stars, stories began to spread. Humans and other species spoke of the captain who dared to stand for truth. Other races told of the vampire queen who welcomed trust when no one else had. Slowly, old prejudices began to crack. Whispers of fear were replaced by cautious curiosity, and eventually by cooperation. At night, when the station was quiet, Elias and Sorelia often walked together on the observation decks. They spoke little at times, letting the stars fill the silence. Sorelia, who had spent centuries alone, no longer feared the quiet. Instead, she found comfort and companionship that had grown from courage and honesty. "You have changed more than this station." "Elias," she said softly one evening, "you have changed me." "And you've changed me too," he replied. "I never expected that a queen, feared by so many, would become someone I could respect and trust so completely." Her lips curved in a faint, genuine smile. "Perhaps the galaxy is ready for a new era. One where fear does not rule, and where courage can reach across the impossible." "Yes," Elias agreed, "and we will help build it together." In that quiet moment, standing together against the backdrop of endless stars, they felt the weight of centuries lift. The queen, who had once been neglected, feared, and isolated now, walked openly beside a human who had reached out when no one else would. They were partners, allies, and symbols of hope. As they looked into the stars, neither could know the exact future. But they understood one thing: when trust and courage guide hearts, even the galaxy itself can change. And so, the vampire queen and the human captain stood together. A bond forged in understanding and honesty. What had begun as a single daring step had grown into a partnership that inspired the galaxy. The stars seemed brighter, the halls less lonely, and the future, for the first time in centuries, filled with possibility. It was a new beginning, not just for them, but for all who witnessed that courage could overcome fear, and that even the most neglected heart could find a companion when someone dared to reach for it. The legend of Queen Sorelia and Captain Elias Grant spread across worlds, not as a tale of fear or legend, but as a story of trust, respect, and the courage to act when all others hesitate. And in that story, the galaxy found hope.